Muk Muktasrayam yahi nirvishayam viraktam nirvanam richadi mana sahasa yadarchaha atmanam natra purusho avyadhanam ekam anvigashade pradinnivrta guna pravavaha Muktasrayam yahi nirvishayam viraktam nirvanam richadi mana sahasa yadarchihi Atmanam natra purusho avyavadhanam ekam anvikshade pradinivarta gunaprabhavaham muktasrayam yarhi nirvishayam viraktam nirvanam richadi manaha sahasa yada richihi Atmanam natra purusho avyadhanam ekam anvikshade pradinivarta gunaprabhavaham Synonyms Mukta Asrayam, situated in liberation. Arhi, at which time. Nirvishayam, detached from sense objects. Viraktam, indifferent. Nirvanam, extinction. Richadi, abstains. Manaha, the mind. Sahasa, immediately. Yadha, like. Archi, the flame. Atmanam, the mind. Atra, at this time. Purushaha, a person. Avyadhanam, without separation. Ekam, one, Anvikshade, experiences, Pradinivurta, freed, Guna Pravavaha, from the flow of material qualities. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. When the mind is thus completely freed from all material contamination and detached from material objectives, it is just like the flame of a lamp. At that time, the mind is actually dovetailed with that of the Supreme Lord and is experienced as one with Him because it is freed from the interactive flow of the material qualities. Purport. In the material world, the activities of the mind are acceptance and rejection. As long as the mind is in material consciousness, it must be forcibly trained to accept meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when one is actually elevated to loving the Supreme Lord, the mind is automatically absorbed in the thought of the Lord. In such a position, a yogi has no other thought than to serve the Lord. This dovetailing of the mind with the desires of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called nirvana, or making the mind one with the Supreme Lord. The best example of nirvana is cited in Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning, the mind of Arjuna deviated from Krishna's. Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight, but Arjuna did not want to. So there was disagreement. But after hearing Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna dovetailed his mind with Krishna's desire. This is called oneness. This oneness, however, did not cause Arjuna and Krishna to lose their individualities. The Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand this. They think that oneness necessitates loss of individuality. Actually, however, we find in Bhagavad Gita that individuality is not lost. When the mind is completely purified in love of Godhead, the mind becomes the mind of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind at that time does not act separately, nor does it act without inspiration to fulfill the desire of the Lord. The individual liberated soul has no other activity. Pradinivurta guna pravavaha. In the conditioned state, the mind is always engaged in activity impelled by the three modes of the material world. But in the transcendental stage, the material modes cannot disturb the mind of the devotee. The devotee has no other concerns than to satisfy the desires of the Lord. That is the highest stage of perfection called nirvana or nirvana mukti. At this stage, the mind becomes completely freed from the material desires. Yadarchihi or archihi means flame. When a lamp is broken or the oil is finished, we see that the flame of the lamp goes out. But according to scientific understanding, the flame is not extinguished, it is conserved. This is conservation of energy. Similarly, when the mind stops functioning on the material platform, it is conserved in the activities of the Supreme Lord. The Mayavadi philosophy's conception of cessation of the functions of the mind is explained here. Cessation of the mental functions means cessation of activities conducted under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanasalaghaya Chakshurunmilidam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stabidam Yena Bhudale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadadhi Supadandigam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yudapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathanidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaidam Savadudam Parijana Sahidam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalidam Shri Vishakhanidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanda Radha Kanda Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpadarupasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Nityananda Udin Dindur Vasudha Prana Vallabha Janava Jivida Badihi Krishna Prema Pada Prabhu Patmavadi Sudha Sriman Sachinandana Purvajaha Bhavun Matta Jagatrada Rekta Gaura Kalevaraha Namo Namo Niruddhaya Rishi Geshindriyatmane Namaha Paramahamsaya Purnaya Navrutatmane Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Lokanath Swami Namine Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswata Devi Guruvani Pracharane Nurvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much for joining very auspicious Srimad Bhagavatam class. This chapter is titled as Lord Kabila's instruction to how to execute devotional services. It's a very beautiful chapter. You can see that the most confidential knowledge. We can see that in Bhagavad Gita, there is a chapter called the most confidential knowledge, and which reveals that how one should take the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and what are the ways. Similarly, we can see that from the beginning of this third canto, second canto, mentioned that what are the 10 subject matter of Bhagavad Gita, and the foremost, the final, which is mentioned that Asraya. Asraya means the shelter, the supreme destination, the shelter. So throughout this Bhagavatam, especially one of this chapter, Lord Kapila, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, reveals that the science, the spiritual science, how one can take the shelter, how one can execute that supreme shelter, that supreme Lord. So it's a confidential knowledge, or the most confidential knowledge. So we can see that toward this chapter, Kapila Dev is instructing Mother Devahuti how to execute this devotional service. And then, of course, as we know that this is as per the, as Acharya has mentioned, that there is a Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Sambandha means how one can relate, how one can make the relationship with the Supreme Lord. Then Abhideya, the process, And then the prayojana, the results of that when one execute the devotional service, what benefits, what prayojana, the results what she can attain. So this chapter reveals that. So very, sequentially, systematically, Kapila Dev is revealing this to Mother Deva. From the beginning itself, Lord Kapila instructs Mother Devahudi that one should have some discipline in their day-to-day life. And of course, Mother Kapila Devi is instructing in such a way that this can also that relate with the Ashtanga yoga processes. That means yama, niyama, and then asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyarana, dhyana, and samadhi. So very systematically, Lord Kapildev instructing this to Mother Devahudi that one should have some discipline, that what a prescribed duty which was mentioned that one should perform without any doubt or without any or doing others' duty than executing one's own duty. So we all know that here in this world that we have some kind of duty that especially it given to us, execute that with properly so that our minds gets purified rather than going here and there doing so many things. Then Kabila Dev instructing to Mother Devahudi that how to purify our mind with the various pranayama processes, so that when we are of course our problem, most of our problem is that which arises from our mind. So when the mind is agitated and deviated, we cannot even focus on anything. So pranayama helps that. So this is why Kapila Dev mentioning that even a aspiring a yogi is aspiring to execute the devotion, he has to bring some discipline in his life. Not that he can do everything and then come back. It won't work because of this material energy is so strong. So only through that we have to channelize. We have to very specifically discipline our activities and the mind and the body. Then we can come. At least we can focus. So this pranayama helps for that, so that we can focus our mind. Then Kabila Devi is mentioning that yes, once the mind is purified, then the yogi should meditate upon the beautiful form of the Lord. It's not that it's mentioned that not that we just go and look at in here and there, oh Lord, or the face. No, Kabila Dev is instructing in such a way that a yogi should meditate upon the Supreme Lord very systematically. So systematically in the sense that one should meditate the lotus feet of the Lord first. So this is applicable for everybody, those who are seeing the deity of the Lord, those who are seeing the Lord in our mind and things like that. So very systematic. So Kabila Devi is instructing this confidential knowledge like this. One should, when sees the Lord or meditate upon the Lord, the one should see, meditate at the lotus feet of the Lord first, and then explaining that the glories of that lotus feet, and it's went through very in detail in previous classes. Then Kapila Devi says that then one should goes up little and then sees the knees of the Lord, then the thighs of the Lord, then one should seize that the lotus navel of the Lord, then the chest of the Lord, then the beautiful neck of the Lord. Then one should meditate and seize the Lord's lotus face of the Lord. And then once that, then lotus the beautiful curly hair of the Lord, and the earrings of the Lord, and the eyebrows of the Lord. And then one should seize that, then the smile of the Lord. Then last few previous verses mentioning that one should then meditate and seize the lotus face and then the smile of the Lord. It is as if that it is like the entire world is illuminated just looking at just seeing the smile of the Lord. Then Kapil Dev is mentioning to the devotee that then one should meditate and seize the laughter of the Lord, laughter. So it's mentioned that when the Lord laughs, and then the beautiful teeth which is visible, and it's like a jasmine bud which comes out, and it's so beautiful in such a way that one should meditate like that. So Kapila Dev then further explains that this way the yogi, a devotee, can completely freed from this material attachment. That this way that mind is completely purified. So then it's mentioned that Srila Prabhupada also mentioned that in that the purport, there is a nirbija yoga. And there's two words is very significant there. And Srila Prabhupada says that there is a nirbija yoga and sabija yoga. So nirbija yoga, this is what is called the sabija yoga. Nirbija yoga means that lifeless yoga. Lifeless means that when we put artificially our mind into everything, then what happens after sometimes, then our minds get agitated. That means in this verse, the Srila Prabhupada mentioned the purport that when the mind is thus freed from this material entanglement. So this is very important that so when we completely focus, these are processes, completely focus upon that the Supreme Personality of Godhead from that all the angas of the Lord, this way the mind is completely freed from all this material entanglement. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned the purpose that the purpose of the mind is that there is a bhoga tyaga. Bhoga means the attachment or acceptance or entanglement, or then tyaga means next time as soon as we enjoyed with this mind or get satisfied, the next moment the duty of the mind is to reject that tyaga. So this goes on. This completely all the time. This aspects goes on like bhoga tyaga or acceptance and rejection, acceptance and rejection, acceptance and rejection. That means that we get something and we just play with it with our mind for some time, then after quite some time then we reject it, and then new things comes again that we play with it and we take it in our mind and the heart, then after some time we reject it. So this keeps goes on. Why? Because of we are under the spells of these modes of material nature. Then as per that our mind goes here and there, accept it, reject it, accept it, reject it, and things like this is this. Then when we engage in the devotion also, well, while we chanting, while we goes to the temple, while we engage in the service of the Lord, while we are going to serve the lordships in Arati, and every time what happens, mind goes away. So this is called the lifeless yoga or called nirbija yoga. But on the other hand, when we have put our mind in that, or is called sabija yoga, that means when we put our complete concentration focus. And how do we get this focus? This mind, as we says that this always the mind has this problem, this acceptance and reject, and this is very very difficult to avoid this. That's why Kapila Devi is giving this very confidential knowledge like that. Only way that we can come out of this bija yoga or this lifeless yoga or very materialistic activities, or whenever we put that, we are not there. Our attentiveness when we chant the holy name, our focus, our determination is not there. Mind is always wandering to various places, so that it's looking for some happiness from here and there. So because of that, Kapila Devi is instructing to Mother Devakodi, one should focus on the beautiful form of the Supreme Lord like this. So, I mean, in many, many places, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Bhagavad Gita, so many places, it reveals that. We know that in the 11th canto, the Supreme Lord also instructing to Uddhava, in Uddhava Gita, Supreme Lord is also instructing to Uddhava that how to worship the Supreme Lord. Even when Dhruva Maharaj was going to the forest, when Naradev appeared before Dhruva Maharaj, and Naradev also instructing the Dhruva Maharaj how to worship the Supreme Lord, it is all similar, same. The Supreme Lord speaks is all same. And we know that also in the Bhagavad Gita, and the chapter, even the ninth chapter, is known as the most confidential knowledge, and how this most confidential knowledge culminates. And the 34th verse of the ninth chapter, what it says that Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mave ittevam atmana matparayanam. And this also repeats, the same word also repeats in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Same, only one line is different. It says that 1865 says that Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyatsi satyam de pradijane priyosime. Mame versus similarly 934, the most confidential knowledge, also says like that. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame versus satyam de yuktana matparayanam. So, like this, so Krishna is saying that Krishna reveals this transcendental knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, in Srimad Bhagavatam, and when various lords incarnation like Kapila Dev, also the Supreme Lord, is instructing this the same aspects, same teachings, that how to meditate upon the Lord. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it's mentioned that Krishna says that always think of me, manmana mama bhakta, always think of me, be devoted to me, become my devotee, mad bhakta, right? Manmana bhava mad bhakto, madhyaji mam namaskarum, and having in your heart madhyaji, and offer your homage and worship unto me, thus, so that then you will come to me, certainly there is no doubt. So this is the prayojana, this is the results that one can attain, that one can develop the love for the Supreme Lord. So also, and in the other words, that okay, Mame Vaishyasi Satyam De Pradijane Priyosime, always think of me, become my devotee, pay your homage unto me, and engage your body and mind to me. Thus you will come to me without doubt, because of Arjuna, you are very dear to me. So Krishna is revealing this, or Kapila Devi is instructing this one, this way that one can become, one can ultimately, certainly reach back to the Supreme Lord. And there is no doubt. And then also, such devotees are very dear to Krishna as well. So this is what is exactly Kapila Devi is mentioning here. So by this process of meditating upon the Supreme Lord, and that's the only way. Otherwise, the yogis goes to the forest, they meditate on some voidness, or so many things. Then what happens? It is not the complete process. It's not a perfect yoga. So what Kapil Dev is revealing here is a perfect yoga, the perfection. So one can attain the perfection by this way. So Kapila Devi is mentioning like this: when the mind is completely freed from all material contaminations, this is the way that one can completely freed his mind from the material entanglement or the contamination, or the very from the impure state of the mind. And then Kabila they say detached from the material objectives. So what is the results of one who does like this? One who meditate upon the Supreme Lord in his full form, from the very systematically, from the lotus feet to the lotus face in this way. Then completely, that in the last verse it's mentioned that how a hook is actually attracted to a fish, right? When we put the baits or a hook on a thread, what happens? We put fishing, right? When we do the fishing, then there is a hook we put on a thread, is put on the water. As soon as the bait sees that the fish attracts to that the baits. So similarly, when we practice this process of yoga, this is the very complete perfect yoga. And then yoga of all, this is the supreme yoga, that one who does that immediately mind rather going here and there, immediately it attracts to Krishna. So this way the yogi can free from this material entanglement. And then, as is mentioned, that the it is just like the flame of a lamp. So we know that in the sixth chapter, Bhagavad Gita, 19th verse, Krishna also mentioning the same thing. It says that when there is a wind is not there, in a windless situation, how a flame very constantly lights. Similarly, when the mind is not disturbed, the mind is steady, mind is determined, it completely it's always lights up like that, without any deviation, without any contamination. So, and Kabladev says that at that time, the mind is actually dovetailed with that of Supreme Lord, and is experienced as one with Him, because it's freed from the interactive flow of the material qualities. So, the devotees, this is the best way that one can come to that level of bhakti. As in the Bhagavad Gita, also Krishna says that he comes to that platform, and Krishna is revealing that like this: he is a great devotee. Mahatmanamstu mam partha devim prakriti masradaha bhajandi ananya manaso jnatvam bhutadim avyayam. What is that? Mahatmanamstu mamartam devim prakriti masradaha. So such devotees comes under the devotees devoid of all this material entanglement, and continuously worship me. He will come under my divine nature. He will come under my divine nature. That's why Mahatmanamstu Mahabhartam Devim Prakriti Masa. Devim Prakriti. This Devim Prakriti is a divine nature. Bhajandi Ananya Manasu. Such devotees, what he does? Bhajandi, worship me without any deviation. Ananya Manasu. Jnatva Bhudadi Mabhyam. He knows that in that stage, he knows that I am the Supreme Lord. So this various places is explained this transcendental supreme confidential knowledge like this. So the devotee will never change like this in that way. So it is very important that dear devotees we understand this science, and this is the only way that we can focus and we can. So how do we do that? So as is mentioned that we should always focus on the supreme lord's that complete form whenever while we are chanting, that we should hear as is that Krishna is, or the holy name is Krishna. So naturally it comes, then we are attracted to Krishna. When we come to the temple, if we practice, then when we come to the temple, it's not that just look at here and there. Okay, the turban is so nice. Okay, we say that, oh, the garland is so nice, or that this one is so nice, that one is so nice. But the core value, the core principle is we are losing that. When we come to the temple, when we see the deity or any form of the deity or the Lord, one should start from the ascending order. That's why we go to the temple, we pray the Srila Prabhupada, we come to Gauranitai, so we come to the Brother Shyam Sundar, that ascending order. And similarly, when we see the deity, also we should also start from the lotus feet of the Lord. When we have that lotus, when we practice like that, when we look at the lotus feet of the Lord, then slowly goes up, and naturally then that glories and each angas comes to our mind, then that will very much imprint upon our mind. So when we hear, then we talk about, then it's all what we are doing, we are always that the complete beautiful form of the Lord is always there in our heart. That's why in the Brahma Samhita it reveals that premanchana churida bhakti vilochanena shanda sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayana. When we develop such a loving devotion, when we develop that such an attitude, such a way of devotional service, this is the way how to execute devotional service. When we execute this devotion like this, and what happens? Premanjana with our eyes are anointed with this beautiful the bhakti, the prema. So it's developed that we can reach up to that, the loving, the prema bhakti. And then what happened? That Shanda, that devotee, Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilogayandi. Then Lord is there in the devotees, always sees the Lord in such a with that love. And that always the devotee sees that. Hridayeshu Vilogayandi, Yam Shyama Sundaramajindya Gunaswarupam. See that devotee sees that the Shyamasundar is not that just the name. Shyamasundar is that the complete form, the complete beauty, the complete everything is there when that devotee, when she say or meditate, the Lord is right there in the heart of that devotee always. Then this is the way that yogi always connects with. This is called yoga. Connect, right? When we connect, when he connects to the Lord, when he always in relationship with the Lord, always connects to the Lord. And as Krishna says to Arjuna that only by this practice, abhyasa yoga yuktena vairagyena japriyade. So when we do that, engage our senses, mind, so that when mind is focused like this, all the senses are subdued, the body is subdued, then it's like incessant, that the flame is how it is executed, how this is lights. Similarly, with the steady, then we can always focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead without any doubt. So this is what is Kapila Dev is revealing, the importance of how one should completely freed from this material contamination, how to execute. This is the way that the devotee can be always can be focused upon the Supreme Lord, and whenever he sees. So Kapila Dev very systematically execute, and we should completely read this off one after another, and put it in our heart how one should execute devotional service. So with this note, I would end here. Thank you so much, dear devotees, for this beautiful, auspicious hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. Back to you, Devotee
Thank you
Prabhu.
so much, Prabhu. We'd like to wish everybody a safe and Krishna conscious day ahead. And we'd like to offer our prayers to Supreme Lord by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare, Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare
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 Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Krishna,
Krishna.
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Rama.
Hare Hare. Shri Nrsimha, Jai Nrsimha, Jai Jai Nrsimha, Praladesha, Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Brinam. Ugraveeram
Ugraveeram
Mahavijwarandam Sarvatomukam Narsingham Vishanam Bhadram Nityam Namiham.
Namami.
Narsinga Bhagwan ki jai, Prahlad
Jai.
Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Let's offer our humble obeisances to all the Assembled Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhu bhaivacha. Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Vaishnavinda ki jai.
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande Hari
Hari Hari Hari
Hari
Bol.
Hari Bol. Thank you so much,
Thank
Shri
you.
Wonderful class. Thank you. Hari
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.